where our hormones are fluctuating, and some of these fluctuations can have a real big impact on how we feel. Instead of seeing it as I'm just throwing money away, you should really be looking at these things as investments in yourselves. It can lead to a lot of issues because it often means you will seek out interactions even when they are not the most positive. Habitually thinking about yourself as somebody of value, something that should be protected, something that should be made the most out of. Hey, what's up? I'm Adam if you're new here, and if you're returning, then you know what's good. Let's talk habits, but more specifically, some of the most important habits that a woman can adopt in her own self-growth journey. These are the habits that have honestly changed my life, the direction that I'm going in, but they're also the habits that I've noticed in the women that I look up to, you know, the ones that I aspire to be like, or at least learn from. And that's what I want to share today. So let's just get into it. Both the most beautiful and most dangerous thing about habits is that when they are developed, they become automatic, almost like a reflex, and thus doing them repeatedly requires little conscious effort. They just become a part of you, and when done right, or perhaps wrong, they become entangled with your identity, which is why good habits can be so life-changing, as can bad habits. And it's this aspect of habits that make them so fundamental to long-term success, because consistency, which we know is needed if you are trying to progress over something over a long period of time, becomes easier when it is habitual, when the activity that you're doing becomes second nature. It's just a reflex. With all that being said then, let's get into the habits themselves. The first habit on this list is that of the digital detox. Now, just like you would clean out your home, you clean out your bathroom, your car regularly, it becomes a routine, something that you know that you need to do every so often to ensure that the environment is optimal. This should be something that we do habitually, is clear out our digital space, because the impact that this has on the way that we think about ourselves and others and what we're trying to do is just it's so big that to not make this a part of your regular life, that you will take stock of what is going on around you in your digital space and remove what you need to, I think it's such a big part of why people aren't getting to where they want to be, or why they feel often quite low and feelings of inadequacy, is because they are not looking at how their digital environment is affecting how they feel and what they do. So I think for any woman who is trying to become the best version of herself, the habit of the digital detox is a must. It's something that I do, something that I often be like, if this isn't making me feel good, if I'm looking around my space and I need to remove someone, I will remove them. There's no longer the back and forth that, oh my gosh, it's okay, here is a cue that this thing is not making me feel good, it's not optimal to me. What should be my action? It's time to remove it. Detox. The second habit is that of cycle consciousness. For those of us who are menstruating every month, our body is changing in typically 30-day cycles where our hormones are fluctuating. And some of these fluctuations can have a real big impact on how we feel and, you know, even the type of fitness that we want to do, the type of exercise we want to engage in, the type of foods that we want to eat, the way that we interact with others. And I think being ignorant to this information, or, you know, just not taking an interest, is detrimental to us because it has such a big impact, like a real physical impact and mental impact on us. It makes complete sense to get into the habit of being in tune with it and understanding what's happening to your body and how you can optimize in certain periods, right? Like when your hormones are up here or down here, or particular ones are interacting with you in different ways. Now, I'm not an expert on the endocrine system or, you know, exactly how hormones will impact you at different places, but I have started to become in tune with my own body, and I'm seeking out information on how these sorts of changes throughout the month will impact me and how I can leverage them, or, you know, fall back into myself and relax a little bit. It's just so important to not be a part of your life, to not be habitual, to reflect on this. The third habit is the habit of recovery. I know we're trying to do a lot, like go get the money, 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 I got it. Like there are so many things that we are trying to achieve that we often forget about the habit of recovery and what happens when you don't allow your body to recover. Now, this is a lesson that I think I first really learned in my fitness journey, that if you try to go consistently and you do not allow your body to recover, so many things can go wrong. Typically, you will be injured, or you will stop seeing the growth that you need because your body doesn't have the time to do the other things that it has to do as part of this cycle, as part of this process of growth, right? And so if you do not build recovery into your everyday life, or at least your every week, or whatever it is, however you time it, then I think it leads to a number of problems. It leads to burnout. It leads to sometimes physical health issues because your body does not have the time, the space, the resources that it needs to make sure that it is in some sort of equilibrium and that it can do what it needs to do to function, right? We are a system, a very complex system that is made up of the physical and the mental, and they are interconnected, right? So we often think about them as separate, but without the body, what is the mind, right? Like your mind requires the nutrients, the resources, and the strength of your body to be optimal. And if your brain is not functioning right, then often it can have impacts on your body. So they are all in one. And I think it's so important to build recovery into your life, right? It should be, again, a reflex, something that becomes automatic, especially if you feel yourself needing it more times than others. The habit of simplicity and building simple routines. As humans, we often trend towards complexity, right? Adding more complexities to our systems as we see those as more advanced, right? And therefore improved. But so many of the times, stripping things back down to their fundamental, to the most basics, the most necessary things we need to achieve something, leads to the greatest outcomes. Occam's razor is this principle or idea that the simplest solution is often the best to go with, right? Because it requires the least amount of assumptions, the least amount of dependencies and all these other things, right? And whilst that's not the case all the time, there are lots of complex systems that are very useful. I think when we are building routines, specifically, this element of simplicity and fundamentals is super important. This premise of taking the simplest form of what you're trying to do, the simplest form of the process, and if necessary, building upon that is a real superpower, and it allows you to achieve things without being overwhelmed or, having all these requirements and dependencies that could throw you off course completely. The next habit is that of investing. Investing in yourself, in your assets, in the people around you should really be, again, a habit. It should be instinctual. It should be a reflex that you are thinking about how the things that you have in front of you, how you can make the most of them, how you can multiply them, how you can allow them to become useful to you and your journey. Now, there is the financial element of putting your money in the right places, and that's really a whole thing in itself. But it's also about how you see the money that you spend on yourself, right? So if you do go to, an event, go to a educational event or a networking event and you spend some money, seeing that in itself as an investment is also really important. Every time you pour into yourself, and I'm not just saying, okay, you buy a denim skirt or something like that, which is actually an investment in itself, and I'm not suggesting that the way you look is not important. I've spoken about that in other videos. But instead of seeing it as I'm just throwing money away, you should really be looking at these things as investments in yourselves and get into the habit of seeing things that pour back into you or that enrich you as an investment. The next habit is perhaps one of the most important and yet one of the hardest to master, and it's that of self-reflection. The ability to be in a situation and be aware enough of yourself to know the ways that you may be impacting it, the ways that you may be, making the situation worse or better is really key, because it allows you to take in this information and improve upon yourself, improve on your interactions, improve on the way that you navigate work or your relationship and so forth. And it's something that I am continuously trying to work on, and I know that it is a point that I will work on forever, right? Like this ability to reflect on yourself and on your own actions and your own thoughts. I think this is especially important as women when you're trying to build healthy relationships, basically with your partner, with your friends, with your family, right? Thinking about the ways that your actions and your thoughts and your belief systems actually could be leading to a less than positive outcome. But bringing this back to habits, the idea is that this is automatic almost, like a reflex, so that the next time you're in a situation like this, when the cue is maybe a negative feeling or even perhaps a very positive feeling, that you think about this situation and how you are affecting it. The habit of seeing yourself as a personal brand and carrying yourself as such. It is so important the way that we present to the world, with our appearance, with the words that we say, how we say them, the way we make people feel. And this idea of the personal brand and carrying yourself as such can help illustrate this. This is not in the super late stage capitalism, you have to monetize everything about yourself, even your personality, yada, yada, yada. But it is instead about this idea that it is important how you show up and how, as social beings, the people around us view us. And so seeing yourself as a personal brand is something to be cherished and protected and, to be made the most of, and to draw on the best attributes and aspects of that brand, of that individual in this sense, is really important. And it's not to say again that we have to be perfect, or that, you never make mistakes, or that, you can't learn and grow. Like, brands evolve, they grow. We've seen that time and time again. But it is just to think about how you show up in the world, and habitually thinking about yourself as somebody of value, something that should be protected, something that should be made the most out of. The next habit is so fundamental and so basic that it almost doesn't bear mentioning, and yet I'll mention it every time, and it's the habit of learning. I almost called this one the habit of reading, but I think that is limiting. The acquisition of knowledge does not need to be bound to any medium like a book or a TV program or a documentary. It's so vast, and the idea of learning should be so embedded in everyday life, so again habitual, that it doesn't need to be any singular way of doing it, right? But let me be clear that that's not to say that books are an issue, because so many of the things that I've learned over the years have come from books, about ways of being, about ways of interacting with people, about processes, about ways I may want to achieve my goals. But they've also come from YouTube videos, and they've also come from speaking to people, and they've also come from me trying, failing, trying again, learning that that doesn't work, let me try something else next time. It is a process that happens over a period of time, and that is consistent. And so it should be habitual again, that any new situation that you're in, any new interaction that you have, you should be thinking about this as an opportunity to learn, as an opportunity to grow, also an opportunity to enjoy. But that's that habit, that's the reflex, that's the automatic way that we should be approaching these things. The habit of solitude. How many of us have an issue with being alone? We fear being alone because that's when our thoughts intrude and all these things start to happen that make you feel uncomfortable. But the danger of not allowing solitude and being alone to be a habit, to be something that is integral to your life, can lead to a lot of issues, because it often means you will seek out interactions even when they are not the most positive, even when they are not impacting your life in a positive way. And the final habit I'll talk about in this video is health as a lifestyle, not as a fad, not as a short-term diet, but as a lifestyle, as your life. I've spoken about health and fitness and nutrition quite a lot on this channel. And again, because it's so fundamental to the way that we live our lives and the way that we can live our lives. But this idea of viewing it as a lifestyle is completely different, right? Because if it's your lifestyle, you'll have habits that are built around it, right? You will have an identity that is linked to it. That, the food that you eat, you see this as a continuous investment in your own health, right? The idea that you go to the gym or work out several times a week isn't just for a short-term period, and there's nothing wrong with seasons, but the overall goal, the long-term aspect is this is a lifestyle. If being a woman who is fit and healthy and comfortable in her own body is important to you, then of course it's going to be tied to health and fitness, which is why this is such a fundamental habit to adopt and develop and make the most of. So that's 10 of the most important habits I think women can adopt as they're trying to grow. There are quite a few more that I have, and so perhaps I'll do a part 2. Let me know if you're interested in hearing a few more. But I think on any journey, the idea of making things a routine, automatic, and linked to your identity is so important. And it's a key to success, to long-term success, as I said at the beginning. So I hope you enjoyed this, and I will see you in the next video.